is the WrestleBread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee here, and this is episode 53 of the WrestleBread Podcast. So I hope everyone is staying safe during this coronavirus, that everything is going well. What's going on in my neck of the woods? I'm still working, of course, an essential worker working in the banks. And I have to say, give some love to us bankers. There's not trying to sound selfish. Of course, the healthcare workers definitely deserve their thanks and everything. And people are giving love to the grocery workers. But give some love to us in the banks too, because we're the ones who are getting swamped because everyone is coming in for their money from the stimulus package. And funny story, I always get asked, do I know when my money's coming? Do you know when the stimulus is coming? Someone asked me yesterday, do you know when I'll be getting my money? And I said, no. The IRS has a website now where you can check for yourself. And he caught an attitude and looked at me and said, so you guys don't know when you're giving me my money? I said no, because it's coming from the IRS. The IRS has their own website. You can check to see when you're going to get your money and where it's going. We don't know when the money gets here until it gets here. A bit stressful. In Pennsylvania, the governor had ordered for essential businesses that all employees have to wear masks and that our customers have to wear masks as well. So starting Monday, and this starts Sunday. So starting Monday, we get the absolute pleasure, and I say this with all the sarcasm in the world, of telling people that they cannot come in to get their money if they're not wearing a mask. And you would think people are a little bit more understanding that, hey, I should be wearing a mask. I'm going face to face with some of these people, especially when we're asking them, what do you need and things like that, because our doors are now locked so we can control how many people are coming in and out. And you would think people would be a little more understanding that, it's for everyone's safety. But no, there are people out there who just doesn't care that there's a virus going around killing people. Yeah, it may slightly be killing older people, but people not realizing that it kills people who have respiratory problems, heart conditions, things like that. And that's not normally always the older people. So people are just not caring at all. And in Philly, like I think I said in the last podcast episode, the buses are now free. So people are getting on the bus just to get a free ride somewhere, which includes the crackheads, I have to say. Not as much as the homeless people. The homeless people still getting on the trains. But for the buses, it's normally our normal nose sniffers who like to get on the bus and start, crashing out a little bit. And there's a limit of how many people get on the bus, because not a lot, but 4 people now of our SEPTA workers have passed away due to coronavirus. So the workers are starting to get freaked out of how many people will get in their face to try to pay for things. And of course, people who don't have money, they'll sit there and try to reason with the bus driver as to why they should get a free ride. So now you have to get on through the back of the bus and you don't have to pay. So now everybody is getting on the bus, which is definitely more than 20 people. Not all the bus drivers are following this rule of limiting it to 20 people. And now I read that they will be supplying masks to the riders. And when I say supplying masks, I mean they have a bag of masks that is by the back door for honest people to grab. One of them if you're not wearing a mask yourself. Of course, when I took the bus 7 o'clock yesterday, the bag of masks was completely gone, which means, of course, what I knew was going to happen, whoever saw that bag of masks just took the whole bag for themselves, or they have the intention of selling the masks themselves. Probably like $5 a pop or something crazy like that. That's what's going on in my little neck of the woods. Hope everyone, like I said, stays safe. So let's get into some wrestling news. A lot has happened this past week. WWE, first of all, is considered an essential business, which is a bit of a slap in the face to all of us essential workers who are out here working. At first, they were not indicated as an essential business by the governor of Florida, and then shortly later, they changed their mind. I have theories of it. I did read somewhere that not too long after they were deemed an essential business, that Linda McMahon and the PAC committee or whatever donated a certain amount of money to the state of Florida or to the governor's campaign or something. But we all know that there's a certain individual who's in the WWE Hall of Fame, who is in the White House. I know that Vince McMahon is included in a conference call of sports media people with the president to try to reopen the economy, which is a whole different story in my opinion. But yeah, WWE is considered an essential business, so now they will be continuing their live shows because they only taped, if I'm not mistaken, they only taped shows up to WrestleMania 36. So everything that happened this past week was actually live. AEW, it still has their tape shows, and their tapings can go up to May. They're hoping that everything will be fine by May so that they can have their Double or Nothing pay-per-view event in Las Vegas. But if not, they apparently have a backup plan for it anyway. They did all their tapings before the shutdown of non-essential businesses back in early March. And WWE is going through a lot of financial problems too. If you haven't heard by now, they released a boatload of people, and they also cut back on some of their finances too, that they're making a lot of budget cuts. They're reducing salaries of executive and board members, decreasing operating expenses, cutting talent expenses, third-party staffing, and they're stopping the construction of their new headquarters for at least 6 months. And we can go into the releases now, which a lot of them were kind of shocking. And some of the wrestling fans out there, not really thinking about what all this is. A lot of them was like, oh, who's going to show up in AEW? And it's like, dude, no one's hiring right now. AEW isn't even doing live shows right now. So everything that's going on, these people are filing for unemployment right now. And I'm not understanding why. I understand why WWE is going through their financial issues, but I thought from them getting all this blood money that they will at least be able to sustain something, that they're not going through so much money trouble. Because from what I read, and I double checked this morning, the talent doesn't pay for their hotel because they're independent contractors, so they don't pay for their travel expenses. So WWE doesn't have to worry about that. WWE is losing their ticket sales, of course, because of all the shows that they do around each year. They still have their TV contract. I believe they still get their commercials and everything. I know that they're paying millions of dollars to a lot of people. Brock Lesnar being one of them at $12 million. I believe AJ Styles gets $5 million. Roman Reigns gets $8 million. I don't think John Cena is under contract anymore. If not, then I know he was getting like $12 million or something like that. But let's go through some of these releases that happened within the past 24, 48 hours. First one is Drake Maverick. And if you haven't been on Twitter to see his heartbreaking video, it's a very heartbreaking video. He didn't expect to be released. He considered WWE his dream job, of course, and he doesn't know what he's going to do afterwards. And I like Drake Maverick, especially with the 24/7 title run that he did. I thought that they would do more with him in that title, but they really didn't have much for him for like the past, 4 or 5 months, if I'm not mistaken. Next up is the tag team of Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, who won the tag team championship at WrestleMania 35. Heath Slater, who people kind of hoped was next in line for his world title, the Universal title or the WWE Championship, especially since Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal both won the titles. Another surprising release to me is Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, who I thought they kind of had some type of traction since they are with AJ Styles. They were named the best tag team in the world from that tag team turmoil that happened in Saudi Arabia as well. Next up is Rusev, who's been wanting to have wanting to be released from his he never re-signed, if I'm not mistaken. So that release doesn't really come as much a surprise to me because he kind of wanted to be released. No Way Jose, who also released a video on Twitter thanking the fans, not really expecting to be released. Sarah Logan, who I'm a bit surprised about because she was just on Raw last Monday. Mike Kanellis and Maria Kanellis, who they just re-signed, but of course Mike Kanellis was a bit upset at the fact that he was getting paid to basically sit at home and he wants to show his daughter that you actually work for your money. Aiden English, EC3, Leo Rush, who I'm also surprised about because he had such a promising run in NXT with the Cruiserweight title. Eric Young, who has been jobbing a lot lately. Primo Colon and Epico Colon. Eric Rowan, who just had the weird storyline of the robot spider that he had in the cage. Deonna Purrazzo from NXT, which I'm surprised about too, because she just had, she was just put up on Raw, if I'm not mistaken, to go against Shayna Baszler, I think it was, or Asuka. I don't know. She was just on Raw or SmackDown not too long ago, so I'm a bit surprised about that. The next people are NXT, Alexander Jasik, MJ Jenkins, Josiah Williams from NXT, who, if you don't know, if that name doesn't sound familiar, he's the one that came up with a lot of the remix to a lot of themes. And interesting enough, he did Shawn Spears' theme for AEW. So I'm a bit surprised that he was released because he could have easily, done a lot for a lot of people's themes. Now, that's someone who I'm hoping will get picked up by AEW once this is all cleared up, because he can definitely help them with a lot of their theme music. Not saying that he has to rap on any of them or something like that, but at least he has the mindset of, helping out with theme music and things like that. And Mike Chioda, which I'm surprised that they released. He is a referee who has been with the company for, definitely decades. Let me see how long he's been with the company. He's been with the company for a very long time. Yeah, he's been with the company since the late 1980s. And he's the longest serving person in the company to be released by WWE. So I'm very surprised that they let him go. They also released some of the producers as well. A lot of these names you'll know. First off, Kurt Angle, which is surprising. Lance Storm, Mike Rotunda, or known as IRS back in the day, who was also Bray Wyatt's father as well. Sarah Stock, Dave Finlay, or Fit Finlay. Shane Helms, who is known as Hurricane Helms. Pat Buck, Sean Daivari, Scott Sean, and they have Lance Armstrong listed twice for some reason. So they released a lot of producers. They released a referee and a lot of talent. So who knows what's going to happen. Normally they release wrestlers not this early after WrestleMania. Normally it's in July or May that they start releasing people. But very sad that, this time around with these releases, because there's nowhere for them to go. There's not a lot of places that are hiring. WWE is the only wrestling company that is deemed an essential business. So it's not like they can easily pop up in AEW next week, because AEW is not really hiring right now. AEW is going through their own financial problems. If WWE is having financial issues, what do you think is happening to other companies like AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan. So it's not like these people can turn around and sign a contract immediately. They will be sitting at home if they don't have a type of backup plan or anything, and more likely having to collect unemployment, which I don't know the rules of unemployment in everyone's state, but in Pennsylvania, you only get 2/3 of your pay, plus now $600 due to the package. But for a lot of people like Drake Maverick, this was their dream job, and they were let go. It seems like from what I've read, I think WWE mentioned it, that, or someone mentioned it, that's through a text message. So I'm hoping for all these releases, all these producers who got let go, that they'll be able to make it through this hard time. And a lot of shock, I have to say, with some of these releases. And I really hope that, this all clears up soon so that people like Drake Maverick and a lot of people, all over the country who are affected by the coronavirus, not being able to work, having to sit home wondering how they're going to pay their mortgage, how they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to get food. I really hope this is over soon and done so we can get back to some type of normalcy. Speaking of financial issues, the XFL has filed for bankruptcy. So it seems like there will not be another season of the XFL. And I really like what XFL had did this time around. It actually felt like you was watching an actual season of football versus, the he hate me and just basically like, I would have to say a mockery of football. So I'm hoping that maybe, I highly doubt it, that they'll be able to do anything next year. But I am happy to hear that some of the people who were in XFL, for example, PJ Walker, were actually picked up by NFL teams. I forgot where PJ Walker went, but I do know that he was signed to a contract with the NFL. People have realized that The Rock watches AEW, which he says, of course he does. Of course he watches, wrestling. He likes wrestling. He likes the fact that there's some type of competition out there to kind of keep everyone on their toes, which is a surprise to people, but it seems like people forgot that The Rock commented on Cody Rhodes' promo from a couple of months ago that he cut for MJF. So, I don't know. And then, the other piece of big news is Ronda Rousey once again pissing people off. She went on to Steve-O's, who was known for the movie and TV show Jackass. She went on his podcast and seemingly spoke down about WWE, called it fake fighting for fun, mentioned that the fans were ungrateful. I don't have what she actually said. I thought I had it up here. But of course, it rattled the feathers of a lot of fans. Not a lot of people was very happy at what she said. I kind of laughed at what she says. Cause she said this before, the whole, wrestling is fake. She kind of mentioned that wrestling is fake, and this was done back when, it was her going against Becky Lynch. And she kind of said it kind of get the fans riled up because she was doing that heel turn. I don't have it. Okay, here it is. She says, I love WWE. I had such a great time. I love all the girls in the locker room. But I was doing basically part-time, and I was away from home 200 days out of the year. And when I get home, I was so sleep deprived because you just don't have time to lay down. So it's like, what am I doing it for if I'm not being able to spend my time and energy on my family, but instead of spending my time and my energy on a bunch of fucking ungrateful fans that don't even appreciate me. I love performing. I love the girls. I love being out there, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, fuck these fans, dude. And then she also mentioned about, Let's see. She mentioned that wrestling is fake fights for fun. So, of course, Alexa Bliss and Lana called her out on it. Alexa Bliss, which I completely forgot, actually suffered a concussion when she was in the ring with Ronda Rousey. And Ronda Rousey also responded to that, saying, anyone who is outraged by me calling pro wrestling fake fights for fun has never been in a real fight. While you all are tiptoeing around bruising some pro wrestlers' huge soft egos, no one is thinking about all the real fighters you're insulting when pretending pro wrestling is somehow on the same level of realism. Yes, I understand wrestling 300 days a year for years on end is incredibly tough on the body and a difficult profession, but do you know what will happen if you got into 300 real fights in a year? You would be dead. And to that I say, if I don't understand, this is why I'm thinking like this is all a work because she is planning to eventually come back to wrestling. Her contract isn't up until April 21. She was supposed to, after WrestleMania last year, go on to have kids with her husband. That's what she said out of her own mouth. And we are now a year later and she is not pregnant. So I'm guessing that this is all for her to come back to wrestling, because if this doesn't make any type of sense at all, because she claims that she is a wrestling fan. She is such a big Rowdy Piper fan, wore his jacket. Her whole fucking gimmick in WWE was based off of him. She called him herself to get the permission to use the nickname Rowdy, and because they both shared the same trainer and she's a big fan of his. So it really don't make any sense for her to act like she is somewhat surprised at what WWE is all about. Like, you're definitely old enough to know that, no, it's not real fights. This is predetermined fights. And no, people aren't actually fighting like it is the UFC, MMA, or anything like that. But I don't get why she is just like shocked that you're away from your family 200 days a year, and that of course you would be tired at the end of the day for that. Like that's the part that confuses me when she does a little tirade like this. The last time she kind of triggered me a bit until I realized, this is probably her, working the fans so that she can eventually turn heel. I wasn't a fan of hers when she started out because she was nothing but smiling. You can't call yourself the baddest woman on the planet and you're coming out with a sweet smile on your face and waving to the fans and stuff. Like, no. When she turned heel in Philadelphia back in March before WrestleMania, that whole persona that she was, loved it. That's definitely who she should have been this whole time. You can't call yourself the baddest woman on the planet and you're like trying to be a babyface. Those two things don't match. I always felt like the way that Shayna Baszler was in NXT is the way that Ronda Rousey should have been the entire time. You come in badass. And if she's definitely serious with what she says, it's kind of like, sweetie, you are the highest paid woman in WWE. They gave you over $1 million contract, which is more than a lot of women who's been busting their ass the whole 300 days out of a year, 100 more than what you have been doing. And a lot of them laid down just so you can have the greatest rookie year probably in WWE history. That you came in, you were trained to wrestle, because it's a lot different from MMA. And yeah, you won the title and you had a title run. Whereas though there are a lot of women, Tamina, for example, who has been, despite the talent in the ring, who has been around for a very long time and never held a title. There's a lot of women who went through WWE and has never really held a title. Or if they held a title, they didn't held the title for that long. I believe Ronda Rousey won her title back at SummerSlam, if I'm not mistaken, and held it into WrestleMania, which is a very lengthy amount of time. Let's be serious. So if she's definitely serious with what she says about ungrateful fans or whatever, it's like, then go back to MMA and get your shit knocked out again. Like, let's be serious. She was dominant in MMA, and then she got defeated twice, left, decided, I'm going to go to WWE, had very big expectations of what was supposed to happen. You know, the fans, you know, really liked her, but once we realized this is another Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns type of situation where someone comes in and then they immediately get shot to the top, yeah, the fans will turn on you for that type of stuff. And once you embrace, they made you turn heel, because there was a bigger rooster on the farm that people were cheering for, you know, Becky Lynch. She really didn't like that. And that's what I felt, that she really didn't like the fact that people weren't cheering for her because it was the Becky Lynch factor. So her ego got bruised, and that's when she started with the whole wrestling is fake and everything like that. And WWE probably decided to turn her heel themselves because, well, you know, we need a polarizing person. Because you're already being booed anyway because of Becky Lynch. She wasn't that good cutting promos at first. There were a few times where it seems like she kind of went off script when she starts getting pissed off at the fans or something like that. So it's not like, you know, that Ronda Rousey was definitely perfect during her run. So I'm not really understanding, if she's definitely serious about her not liking what's happening. It's like, dude, you claim that you're this big fan of Rowdy Piper. You claim that you're a big wrestling fan. And so, yeah, you should know, especially if you were watching during the Attitude Era. If you ever heard of ECW, you should definitely know that fans can turn on you in an instant. And you have to have tough skin, really, to do it. You have to have tough skin to be out in the public anyway. Because people can boo you. People can cheer you in one instance. I mean, look at Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins was the biggest thing at WrestleMania 35. And then, in an instant, with Bray Wyatt and everything, people started to boo him. And he couldn't really take it. And he also had some comments, too, because there were a lot of people who were upset at WWE for some of these cuts. And he wanted people to unite together and, you know, not worry about the negativity and everything. And it's like, dude, I get you're a company man, but a lot of your coworkers got cut. They don't have a job. And there's no other job that they can go to unless they decide to work at a grocery store or at a bank, or if they have some type of medical background, they can immediately hop into working at a hospital or something like that. There's nowhere for them to go. They're sitting at home wondering how they're going to pay their bills, especially if they had a nice sizable contract. That's a big dip. That's a big drop to go through. So I get it, but you know, it's like, and I still don't understand the fans who are like, oh, they're free. And it's like, there's nowhere to go. I could see if this was a year ago when everything was up and running and we had hot traffic of AEW going on. Yeah, you could be excited for the people who got released, but now there's nowhere for any of these people to go. They're at home. They're unemployed. It's a very bad time to get released from WWE. This is the worst time to get released from WWE because there's nothing out there. The only thing they can do is start a YouTube channel and hope that it picks up some type of heat. But other than that, there's nothing for them to do. So this episode is going to be very short because I'm recording this before I have to leave for work. So that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. I know I really didn't get into any wrestling this week. I have to admit, I didn't really watch NXT this week. I did watch a little bit AEW. I did watch some of Raw, and I didn't watch any of SmackDown last week. So I'm going to catch up on all of that so I can do a lot better next week. But Like I said, thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter at Jaydee Talks. That's JAYDEE Talks. And you can also follow the podcast at WrestleBread as well. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions of what's going on. I hope you stay safe during this coronavirus. And until next time, guys, peace.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Check us out at WrestleBread.com and subscribe to WrestleBread on YouTube for more breaking news and JD's opinions.